The Diary of Thoughts, Part 22. Heaven and Hell. At this point, you are about to say once again that it's no use to read all the nonsense I'm writing, but I assure you that this is more useful and interesting than to spend time in a pub, getting drunk, and listening to every kind of absurdities you can imagine. I also participated in those same conversations, the kind of conversations that leads to no conclusion at all. I know what's being drunk, believe me. I never was adept at interpreting numbers as a form to correlate events of life with figures, but the fact is that some studies are based on that relation. If I recall what I wrote about numbers and about the concepts that rules the notions about the invisible balance or the matrix that governs our existence, it's certain that numbers represent a particular logic that controls the universe. Numbers are presented to the human spirit as the only possible formula for us to organize and understand a little bit about the whole context, still never allowing us to see the big picture, the final result. Let's say that science is based on numbers and rational questions and related answers. For them, aside from these two elements that are forcibly translated by figures, there is nothing at all. In today's society, everything is explained and translated by numbers. Economy, even medical reports are defined by figures, not to mention taxes based on a citizen's registration number. At the limit, all the financial motivation created by the banks as credit cards are nothing but vehicles to control people, their habits, and their individual economies. We are nothing but numbers, according to the established political and economic systems. The only thing that they don't explain is that there will always be something that will never be expressed by mere figures, which means that there are feelings and emotions involved in every single thing that we do on our lives. There are also values and principles implied and originated by those feelings and emotions. Some events occurred in my life that is related to the number 22. Also, it happened without intention that part 22 of this whole document matched opposite notions and values representing extremes, as heaven and hell. True or not, I don't know. According to studies, the number 22 means bad luck and also represents duality in every circumstance of our lives. But I don't think so. Along with the notions about heaven and hell, I am convinced that these are nothing but the product of the imagination of human beings, and if both of them exist regarding experimentation of good and bad, right or wrong, they don't necessarily mean that they correspond to that abstract definition. In reality, I think that we human beings can create every single kind of heaven or hell that our imagination can generate. The fertility of the human spirit is so vast that it can translate and express all the messages that we unconsciously capture from creation, not from any god or supposed devil. In fact, this is the same thing as to say that everything that is good is the product of God and all bad that happens in our daily lives is the result of the devil. The same thing happens when some people always blames others for their mistakes as they don't know how to manage their doubts and fears. They will always find a guilty one to blame and justify their actions. The attribution of these labels as heaven and hell were manufactured by human beings, namely by the ones that wanted to be in control of society in general through the manipulation of ignorance, mostly through the practice of religion. Once again we return to the subject called knowledge. Awareness and knowledge are almost forbidden words to a majority of people, but ignoring that they are present in each one of us, in a major or minor degree. This thesis will be referred to the next chapter of this book. In my country we used to say that a king is like an eyesight person in the middle of the blind, and I think that this sentence defines the type of control that a minority imposes to society, playing with fundamental values like beliefs and convictions, conditioning the knowledge of society on purpose. Beliefs and convictions make an intrinsic part of the human soul, but they will never become an object of manipulations as they are pure and simple. Every contradictory appliance of these two elements will always lead to degradation and chaos for the majority of society on behalf of those who are using these same values just for their fortune and fame. After all, there is no God, and there is no devil as there aren't several gods, and there aren't several devils as several cultures along history just imagined and claimed. There is only creation herself that originated every existing thing in the universe. Our thinking, good or bad, right or wrong, are nothing but the product of our imagination, as creation herself is very difficult to explain and understand. Due to the religious manipulation that was always practiced during centuries, most of the society are even afraid to contradict that kind of brainwash that was imposed by a minority of people to control and manipulate the population, as ignorance always represented the major part of society. The notions about to fear God were induced on people's minds, forgetting that society is evolving and analyzing all events in a very different way than some years ago. In fact, technology is related to all this, since it is mainly used to induce people's minds to consume and being concentrated on superfluous things, but it can also happen that this technology can be employed by the other players of this game in a very opposite way. In reality, everything that was planned and programmed by the big brains can be used against them regarding a general awareness that cannot be avoided. Ignorance is not a disease, it's just the final result of not having the necessary means to achieve knowledge. That's why a minority always detained this last one. It's easier and necessary to establish limits and define values that in most cases are being targeted for abuse by power and greed. The same individuals who introduced and set those same hypothetical social parameters and religious patterns to society. Without any doubt, society has the need to have a guide to be able to be disciplined. This guide doesn't forcibly imply the use of false notions and concepts, like being afraid of being punished by God or by the devil, but mostly by using logic as the primary key to evolve and understand. I believe that heaven and hell can be created by each person, depending on their degree of understanding about their existence. This perception or this consciousness regulates the individual way of living, the personal way to behave and act. Heaven and hell can be created by the malformation of some children's parents, as they can be beaten and mistreated, living a hell and finding their heaven while playing with a simple wooden toy in their world of pure imagination. The mere abstraction and distance of some parents about the existence of their children, as some of them become progenitors without even knowing, can create a real hell in a child's life. Human beings are the first ones who create their heaven or hell, not only to themselves but also, directly or indirectly to other people around, mostly for the ones who are dependent on their notions about these two concepts. Heaven can be created by simple things as they will bring us the necessary harmony and peace to enjoy moments of our lives. Heaven is nothing but happy moments that are spent all along our lives, even small ones. After all, our lives are nothing but moments of our time and fragments of the universal space, the cosmos. Hell is the specialty of humankind, translated by the ones who want to conquer power above every single value in life. They betray the fundamental principles about their existence, the existence that they never understood in the first place, creating wars, chaos and controlled disorder just to maintain their power, financial and social status, and using religion as a vehicle for brainwashing. Along history, even on recent history, there was always a real hell caused by human beings. Slavery is one proof of what people can cause to their species. The way Afro-Americans were treated in the history of the United States represents the extremes of the human dehumanized methods that were applied to ordinary human beings, using the same discriminating and murderous ethnic behavior as the ones practiced by the Nazis on the Second World War. A 4-episode series documentary narrated by Morgan Freeman, Slavery, The Making of America, gives a small image about that racial discrimination and brings a few clarifications about the several stages that went through before Afro-American were considered as human beings in USA. These documentaries are a disgusting example of a real hell created by some human beings that can behave worse than the most primitive animal on Earth, ever. Racism is a somber word that existed all along history. Racism is related with different cultures and beliefs, being these connected with the wrong interpretation of religion itself. Racism calls for racist reactions the same way that violence calls for violence and aggression as self-defense, contrary to kindness that calls for kindness and compassion. Since childhood and while our relationship with others, we find ourselves submitted to this chain of reactions as a result of our different states of mind, our various cultures, formation and education, even due to our intrinsic individualism, acting according to our instincts as human beings. Finally, the essence of each person can be accepted but not forcibly completely understood, which originates the existing conflict between us all. In fact, we allow ourselves to be different, but we have the natural tendency not to accept the difference of other people around us. I never discriminated a single person for their color, their culture or for the way they are, but I can become a real racist while dealing with racism. During my life I endured several racial behaviors coming from others as I worked through different European countries, each one with their differences while manifesting this sad attitude. This experience of mine showed me that chauvinism is at the origin of racism in most of the cases, independently of the culture and religious elements that are behind its practice. Let's not forget that chauvinism translates a false and subconscious notion about superiority in a certain way, though not being much different from racism but merely its practice being made under a different form. All this is related to the lack of the necessary acceptance of how different we are, ignoring that we complement ourselves by sharing what we are with everything that we can learn from other people around us. This misunderstanding can create a hell in relational and sociological terms, instead of creating a collective heaven that should be present every day of our lives. An amazing movie that reflects images of the reigning brutality and aggression practiced by the white supremacy of the KKK, exactly or even worse than the human chaos that Hitler practiced while the Second World War, is the one with Gene Hackman and Willem Dafoe. Mississippi Burning. Power and greed can generate hell, the kind of hell that might only exist over here and certainly not on a higher level that we, human beings, will never be able to understand. Some are even afraid to listen. Let's not forget that some human beings just look like it, but deep inside of them, they are not. Otherwise genocides wouldn't be possible to happen. Even animals kill for the instinct of survival and not for a question of creating hell to dominate their species. Their instinct of domination is purely their way to survive without posing questions or premeditating strategies to crash their species. If we think carefully, there is no hell in the animal's world, just fear. There are only moments translated by instincts. If the terminal moment arrives, it's just natural and may be understood by them, as they didn't even think about it in the first place. They just live the moment of their lives. Human beings are the only living creature that can intentionally cause harm, misery and pain to their species, playing the game of adulterating the primary meaning of their existence, creating hell that only exists in human society, nowhere else. There is a reason why every civilization reached an end of its existence. It's not because human beings respected the natural laws of nature, because they didn't, but due to a certain restricted consciousness and perception that was given by creation. Just because they don't know all the answers brought to their spirits, they defy every single rule as a manifestation of a certain protest against their incomprehension. That incomprehension can cause a real hell in society, as the false notions about beginning and end leads to extreme behaviors and sometimes, absolute disrespect for life herself. Life created a big mystery by saying that man was not put on earth as a newborn, but as an adult, otherwise he wouldn't have survived. For those who believe in Adam and Eve, this could be a personal theory that might confirm that fact. What Eve was supposed to have done is another story. Heaven can be naturally created by the appliance of pure feelings and perceptions about life as our Supreme Mother. Some people have it, others don't, without having any connection to ideas being better or worse, or more clever than everybody else. It's just natural, it's just there or not. In fact, humble and simple people are the first ones that can create a pure heaven, as they don't pose many questions and just live the moments of their existence as they present themselves. If intelligence is necessary to society in general, it also can cause an existential conflict within human beings that will lead to a misunderstanding about the final goal of that gift called intelligence. Maybe human beings weren't prepared to receive that gift after all. Finally, heaven can only be brought from our minds, according to the interpretation, perception, even acceptance of all the manifestations of life. Some people cause their heaven, others cause their hell, finally and unfortunately also the hell of others. We can all be living in hell, mostly the one that we create to ourselves, our demons. Heaven is nothing but the sensation of joy, harmony and tranquility in life. To achieve these elements and state of mind, human beings have to change completely their way of acting, namely using their intelligence to achieve higher goals. Intelligence was first given to human beings, for sure not to build hell, but to develop and evolve their heaven, their paradise. The contradiction about the existing heaven and hell concepts within each person is that they all want to reach heaven without avoiding a personal creation of a real hell to themselves and other people around. Let's hope that it will change. Let's hope that humanity will finally evolve. The whole equation that human beings pretended to create around subjects like heaven and hell, God and evil, are merely an attempt against the logical chain that created everything. We can believe in God or hell. Up to us to know what we want to find, it's within us. If there is a scientific theory about the collision of particles as the explanation of life itself, then it's a fact that human beings are colliding with each other, causing a mess that we can call as the real hell. If we examine life as pure energy and logic, we'll see that each one of us possesses a certain degree of energy, the kind that makes us think and move. That inner energy can be in confrontation with other different types of human energy, even with the intelligence that was given to us by the Creator. Feelings are the only element that can neutralize this invisible conflict, allowing us to evolve spiritually. It's all about energy and logic and feelings after all. You can say that I am a mere idiot or a stupid believer, but in the end, I think that all of you also have your interpretation or perception about all these existential theories about God and evil or heaven and hell. It happens to everyone, independently of the individual perspective that approaches this subject. But finally, it's all about belief.